Hello, everyone, and welcome to 20 Tools to Help Manage Emotions. I'll just, oh, no, it's not working. There we go. And I'll be just taking you through 20 different approaches to helping you to manage how you're feeling at any point in time. Not all these approaches will be appropriate every single time, and you won't necessarily like all of them. I have my favorites that I use regularly, and these are all tools that I was taught within my kinesiology course, within our counselling module. And I thought it's just a really great start, and it's really broad range of different techniques. So I thought I'd share them with you to help you with dealing with any emotions and negative thoughts that might arise in regards to childlessness. So this is an official event for World Childless Week 2019, and my name is Barrett. And I'll just go through some guidelines first before I introduce myself in more detail. Then I'll be asking you, what are you good at? Sorry. Then we'll go through the 20 tools, and then we'll have question and answer time, if that's okay. So in regards to guidelines, make sure that you've got your mobile phone switched off, and if you're not speaking, it'd be great if you could have your phone on mute, just in case there's any background sounds. Yes, if any emotions do arise for anyone during this time, feel free to send me a note or send me an email afterwards, and we can talk one-on-one if needs be. And I think that's about it. I have written some notes in regards to guidelines. So if anyone wants to share anything, everyone's welcome to participate and ask any questions along the way if there's something that I haven't clarified. And if I go off track too far, please pull me back in, because as I'm going through this and talking from the top of my head, then sometimes my mind goes off in different tangents. So please forgive me if I do. Now, there we go. About me. Now, here's me pictured with Stephanie Phillips, the founder of World Childless Week, and Jodie Day. So two women that have inspired me and motivated me to get out there and start talking about childlessness and my position, and just being open about it. And being open about it has actually opened up new relationships for me. So I do encourage you to do so also, because it can be actually quite therapeutic. And however, if you do need some help with how to do that and how to start talking about it with others, happy to talk about that with you at another time. This squiggle that I've drawn on the page represents my path, in a sense, from birth down to when I really hit rock bottom after I found out that I couldn't have kids after having a hysterectomy, and and then my path back up. And so my journey has been a long one. I've been wanting to have kids since my early 20s. However, I didn't meet a suitable man or any man at that time, and or anyone that wanted to have kids at that age. And so by the time I actually did meet my first husband, I was in my 30s. And but I know that I was already starting to have health problems that I didn't know that they were actually affecting my fertility. And I will keep this short. And anyway, then that marriage ended. Next relationship, I should say. We were going to try IVF, but then he changed his mind last minute as we were about to sign the contract. And then, my second marriage, when I found out that I was really not well and had to have emergency hysterectomy before I was ready to give up. And just with the hormonal change as well, just didn't help with my emotions and my thoughts. And I ended up with depression, having to take extended leave from work, and and just feeling like a complete failure, and realizing that I wasn't going to have the future that I had planned the last 20 years. And So during this time, I had to make a decision which way to go, and how, if I was going to continue on living, then I had to live a life of purpose and meaning and actually do something and change my life so that I wouldn't still go on that same trajectory downhill. And because I always like to know the whys, and I wanted to know, what had led me to this point in my life. What decisions had I made in my past? What thoughts, what subconscious beliefs had I had? What sabotages did I have? And why did my health and my body fail me? So what had I done to contribute to this? And so I went on to study natural health, including kinesiology, and then various different mind techniques. Most recently, I've graduated in positive psychology and mind-body sciences. And so now I practice and have my own business, which now for the last 3 and a bit years, helping people to find the underlying contributing factors to what's led them to their stuckness in life or this place. And before that, I used to be in corporate, and I'm sure that the corporate stresses had contributed to my health problems as well. So as you know, where there is stress, there is no health. But when I was right down the bottom of feeling my lowest, I had no idea that this is where I'd be today, and feeling as good and as balanced as I am today, and so grateful for all the learnings that I've made, and more than happy to share and help others in the community. So now, are you ready to move forward as well and make change in your life by releasing negative thoughts and emotions? Negative thoughts and emotions, well, emotions particularly from a Chinese theory perspective. So kinesiology is based on science of anatomy and physiology combined with Chinese theories. And it just is a great platform from which to help find where your blocks are, remove them, and so that you can move forward in a new way. So essentially it helps, and the techniques that I use help to reprogram your neurological pathways, reprogram your thinking, and so that you can stop this roller coaster and that's going down, and actually start making change and moving towards the life that you prefer to have and the life that you choose to have. Sometimes there's things that we don't even know that are stopping us from moving forward. So those deeply held suppressed emotions that may have happened even as a child, or ones that we've actually taken on as a learned behavior from our parents. And if you're open to past life stuff, sometimes past life choices and events can also play a part in this life. Now, at this stage of the process, it's great to provide some context to help you with the exercises that we're going to be running through. Just to have an intention of what it is. First is about how you're feeling now, and then change that to how you'd like to be. So what's the positive words? So at the moment, for example, like I might be feeling anxious, and instead I'd like to feel calm and centered so that I can speak extemporaneously and comfortably with everybody here today. So that is then the positive of my anxiety. I'd like to be calm and centered. So just if you could just quickly have a think about that and maybe write it down, just so that you have a focus and an intention to provide context to the exercises. So the exercises we'll be doing are, I'm just going to be running you through them, explaining them how they work, and it's not a counselling session today, because it's just not the right format for that. It's much better to work one-on-one if you need help, because everybody is unique and everybody comes to this point from different backgrounds, different circumstances, and everybody's mind works differently, everybody's body responds differently. And with the work that I do, I can then tap into your subconscious using muscle testing, and and then help guide you through the process and identify like what techniques actually will be optimal for you. Because not all the techniques work for everybody, because they might have some emotional connection to that technique. It might remind them of something or someone in the past, and then that's a negative, so that automatically puts up a block for them. But then there'll be other techniques that resonate and are more effective for you. But everyone's an individual, so there's no one solution fits all. Okay, so your daily habits and actions are a reflection of your deepest beliefs, and your well-being and results in life are a mirror of your personal identity. So why I included this was to ask you, how is it that you're speaking to yourself? And what is it that you're saying to yourself every day? What are the negative things? When you look at yourself in the mirror, when you start your day, when it's time to get out of bed, what are you saying to yourself? Because the subconscious mind listens to all those things and reflects that back to you. So the more negative things we speak about, the more negative things you bring into your life. The subconscious mind doesn't have any conscious thinking itself. It just builds on information over time. And it also looks for evidence of those negative things in your life, and then inflames them almost and makes it a stronger response. And that's why, for example, like people sometimes always attract the wrong person into their lives, so the wrong type of partner. And it's because that's what their subconscious mind is choosing as a response, because in the past, that first time that it happened, that person was still safe and alive. And that's what the subconscious's mind job is to do, is just to keep you safe, protected and alive. And so it's a learned behavioral response over time. And so it's also important to start catching yourself out with your negative thoughts and just turning those statements into positives as best as you can. And again, it's a practice, and it's a learned practice as well. It does take time. It's not something that you can do overnight. It's just, the first step is just to catch yourself out whenever you have a negative thought. Because we have thousands, I think it's almost close to 60,000 negative thoughts a day. That's the average for a person. I think it's between 20 and 60. And of those, 90% are repeated the next day. So that's a lot to go through and a lot for your mind. And all negative thoughts do create a biochemical response in the body as well. And so producing adrenaline and then cortisol, and the body actually doesn't like that. That's another stress and a toxin within the body, which can contribute to health problems in the future. So you will get brilliant at what you practice at every day, consciously and subconsciously. So that's also where those negative thoughts. So if you keep practicing negativity, practicing negative emotions, that's what you'll become good at and take you down the wrong path. So it's time now to choose to start focusing on positives as best as you can. And it's what these exercises are here to help you with today. So you may like to take a print screen of this. This is a list of all the techniques that we're going to run through tonight. And some are shorter than others and easier to explain. And some might not be relevant to you either at this point in time, that what you're going through. But if it doesn't apply to your childlessness, you might have something else going on in your life that it might apply to, like a situation at work or a situation with a friendship, or even with exercise and your health. Not everything will necessarily apply. Okay, change. There we go. So the first technique is a really easy one, and it's also helps with a lot of the other techniques that we're going to follow on from this. And it's actually something that most of us do quite intuitively when we are stressed or upset. And that's to put our hand over our forehead and the other one at the back of the head. So the front of the head, we have the neocortex, and the other one is our primitive brain, the occiput or the occipital. And so the primitive brain is at the back. That's our place of fight, flight, and freeze. And the front is where we come up with new creative solutions for old problems. And so even just by holding it, you're helping to bring blood flow to that part of the brain and helping those two brains essentially connect, so that if it is a problem of the past, which relates to where the hand at the back is, by placing the hand at the front, you can now come up, you'll find, if you just hold into it, thinking about the problem, thinking about the issue. And even if you're having like a creative block one day and you can't come up with a solution for something at work, this technique helps as well. So it's about coming up with new ways of responding to an old problem or to the problem at hand. So that's as simple as it is. I realize with childlessness, we can't create a child miraculously. So that is not the solution. It's about the problem. I'd recommend is looking at the emotions that you're feeling, the way you're feeling about it, any physical responses that you might be having, and the way that it's playing out in your life. So, and then thinking about how it is that you want your life to be instead. How is it that you want to feel, rather than thinking about the fact that you can't have a child, because we know that that can't be the outcome. It's just, okay. Next technique is called new resources. So for when you feel unequal to the situation. So we think of a situation at present where you feel inadequate. For example, even having to go out to families' places and where there might be kids, or where somebody will ask you, do you have kids? All those types of things. Then we FO hold, so frontal occipital holding, and think about new resources that you could do with. So resources being your inner resources, and how, if you don't have them, where you could get them from. So planning ahead before going and asking yourself, or do I need to make a phone call to, someone else in the Childless Not by Choice community and just get some tips from them as to, and just helping to talk to someone. That's a resource. A friend is a resource. A connection in the community is a resource to you. And that's what all the Facebook groups are great for as well. And you have my email here at the bottom of the page. Feel free to contact me as well. So, who, the what, where, when, and how. And, even deciding whether or not, if it is, for example, a social event, do you even need to go? Do you need to be there? And then preparing then, should you feel uncomfortable, how are you going to make your exit? Do you need to say anything, or can you just remove yourself? So just playing it all out in advance really helps. Then when we're thinking of the new resources, then see yourself doing those actions. So it's like creative visualization, planning it all out in your head. So this example says taking classes, being mentored. That's what I do. I'm a transformational coach as well. And adopting new resources. So it's about those new skills. And when you're with this exercise, when you're visualizing that process, it's about visualizing all the things you see. Imagine hearing what you're going to hear, the people saying. That's the auditory. K is for kinesthetic. So how is it that you're going to feel when you are able to hold yourself within this situation? When you're feeling empowered, what does that really feel like? And then what tastes are you going to experience? And and how you're going to, I've forgotten. The word has just gone from my mind. Guston is the G, olfactory. So smell, what smells are you going to smell there as well? So, if you're going to be, it's about using all your senses and actually really feeling that sensation of feeling in your power when you go to an event, or however it is that you want to feel in that circumstance. And then you play through the current stresses using those new resources, and then choose to implement them. So it's what the mind can conceive, the mind can achieve. And so if you're already training it before the event, it will already know how to respond, because you've already visualized it and told it, your brain, how it is that you know that you can respond if you choose to moving forward. Keep pressing the wrong button. There we go. Next is called TV video rewrite. Sorry, this one takes a bit long to explain. Um, thanks, Mary. And she's going to have to take her leave for now and watch it later. So TV video rewrite is about pretending that you're watching your scenarios. So everything that you've gone through, imagine removing yourself from it and watching it, your life, as though it unfolds on a TV. Then having a remote control that you can actually control the scene and what's happening for you. Then next, after you've seen the scene unfold, turn it into a cartoon. So the idea is that it's becoming more removed from you. So it starts off first as a visual, and then you turn it into a cartoon. And then you change actually all the characters within your cartoon. So you're rewriting it. Then you change the ending. So we realize, again, when you do this exercise, if you choose to do it, you can't choose an ending that you have a child if you know that that's not literally possible. But you can choose some other form of happy ending for your story. Then the idea is then watch that new movie that you've created with a new ending as a cartoon, replaying several times through. And now, once you've done a few times, then put yourself into the image and play it as a real movie, using all your senses and how you'd actually feel and experience the sounds and the smells and the people that are there and what they're saying to you. And again, using all your 5 senses to really feel it, because that's what makes the difference with being able to make it. Like if I was to ask you to, remember a time where you felt really, really happy. And, thinking about that moment where you felt truly happy. It could have been as a child, as a 5-year-old, getting really excited about receiving birthday presents and having a birthday cake and all the people there singing happy birthday, and just that sense and that change you can actually literally feel inside your body. So that's the same type of reaction that happens when we do this exercise and you use all your senses. It's really important to make those biochemical changes within the body, because that actually helps to start clearing blockages to negative emotions and negative thoughts. Okay, next is to make it up. Essentially, making it up is also like using your intuition in a sense, but there's no rights or wrongs when it comes to this exercise. So you can focus on an issue to do with something from the past, something that's happening now, or something that you might be worried about in the future. And then while you're exploring this, what is the relevance of that to your present situation? And then asking, how can you learn from this? So it's about just sitting there, thinking about the situation and the thing that has happened to you, and asking literally yourself, your mind, what can you learn from this exercise? So, and how do you want it to be for you today as the alternative? And then ask what needs to happen to make that outcome possible. So again, focusing more on, the way that you want life to be for you moving forward. Next is called Census input. So when you hold on to an issue at arm's length. So that's, not arm's length as in it's there at a distance, but this one, only do it when you're ready to relive the traumatic time. Like, that's not everybody I know is definitely ready for that, especially those coming to World Childless Week. A lot of people are still very raw, so this is definitely not recommended for them. This is about literally going back and actually immersing yourself in the emotions, especially for those people that are ready to deal with what they've been holding on to and have been suppressing and not letting go, because it's important to release and move forward. So releasing, this technique says to see, hear, smell, taste, touch and feel everything, just to really make it real. And it says so you can release it, but doesn't actually talk about how to release it. There's a great number of ways to release it, and one of those is just finding ways to get it out of your body. Like for me the other day, I had to go for a big walk, and all of a sudden I found myself running, and I'm not a runner, but I needed to get rid of the emotions, because that's a physical way of getting rid of that change that's happening and that tightness. And for some, running will be suitable. Others might be something more gentle like yoga or swimming, like, because different emotions have an energy to them as well. So some, like anger, for example, is more of a masculine type energy, and there'll be other emotions. We always look for a balanced masculine, feminine energy, and so some words are more masculine than others, and so sports and activities and ways of getting emotions out of you might need to be to match and marry that. But you'll know that within yourself, like what suits you and what's a great way. Like yelling into a pillow is a way of getting it out. Writing is another way. So literally just writing what it is that you're thinking and feeling at that very moment, because that's a way of getting it out of your body and onto paper. And sometimes we'll be really surprised at what awarenesses you get just from writing. Like the other day I had to do that. So I've had a really difficult week myself this last week. And just by really being honest and saying what it is that I was feeling, I immediately, as soon as I put the pen down and looked at it, I just had an immediate release response. And, while it lasted all day, but the next day there was another emotion that came up. I then wrote those out. And again, I felt almost an immediate response. So another thing I need to let you know about is with emotions, they sometimes work like layers of an onion. And when you clear the one aspect, it clears the way for another emotion to come up or another memory to come up. And when that one clears, then it brings up the way, clears room for another one to come up. And so sometimes you'll wonder, it's like, when is this ever going to end? But trust that it does end. Although life does happen and new things happen for us. But as you're working through emotions, know that there's a lot of work to be done, especially on such life-changing things as childlessness. Now, next technique is called brainstorming. And this is then when you're having trouble finding solutions and working through them. This again requires you to sit down and take the time for yourself. It's another thing that I find a lot of my clients don't do, and that is make time for themselves. So even if you block out in your calendar like 10 minutes every night to do something for you, and even if it is just to journal your thoughts, please do it, because that's really important to start doing things for yourself and putting yourself first. So brainstorming is one thing to, great exercise to do in your journal. And 3 phases to this. First is literally just come up with every single possible idea that you can come up with, no matter how silly it is, and write it down. Then provide the critical evaluation, and then find and implement a solution. So looking for how you can achieve what it is that you've come up with. Next is called active listening. And this one does need a second person to help you. And, any friend will do, but you'll need to also provide them guidelines, and also trust them with your feelings. So it says speak about your feelings, to define and to redefine, and think the problem through out loud. So again, speaking out loud is another way of working through emotions. So if you can't find a friend, then speak to yourself in the mirror. Speaking them out is another way of getting emotions out. And then have your listener assist you with helping to explore what it is that you're talking about. So they're not to give you solutions or opinions or advice. They're just there to guide you and ask you questions, such as, how is that a problem? Just to help you dig further. Next is called feel, want, and willing. So when you blame someone else that did this to you. So sometimes we feel more of a victim in our circumstance of childlessness. And so this is to help with rewriting that story. So again, as we started at the beginning, FO holding, frontal occipital holding, and then once you've done that, think of all the ways that you feel about the situation and write them down. And write down then what it is you really, really want. And what is it that you're prepared to do what you want and to get what you want. So again, I know that a lot of people here do want a child. that is not the outcome that I recommend writing here, because you already know that that's not what you're going to get. But there are other things you can get, you know, with a new, whatever it is that you want, a renewed way of being, and what that is for you. Then dialogue this with another person and play it through several times until it becomes easier. Next is using your intuition or your hunches or gut feelings. So knowing without reason. And sometimes people think, you know, should I listen to it? A lot of people do lose touch. It's something that it's trained out of us, I think, from the age of 7. So children are usually very much instinctual, and but as adults, we become less and less. So this is about getting back into that practice of listening to yourself, listening to your gut feelings. I sometimes wonder if I'd listened more to my gut feelings, then I wouldn't be childless. So there is a level at which you already know your truths, and you may have been clouded by reasoning, overanalysis, or other people's opinions, and I can't read it, or wants. And it's about just trusting yourself and trusting your inner knowing. So the exercise requires you to FO hold again, and then focusing on your breath to quieten the mind. Breathing helps you to connect in with yourself. And, you know, in that process, I like to also imagine that the breath comes in through my nose and then scoops out any negative thoughts and emotions at the same time, and anything that I'm worried about or distracted about, just so that you can focus on your breath. Then trusting your unconscious mind to give you the answers. So asking questions and just seeing what response comes to you, whatever pops into your head first, without analysing it. Oops, I think I've gone the wrong way. Next exercise is when we get really emotional and we just get really, really energetic. And it's called the grounding rod. I brought my rod with me today, and you don't need a literal rod, but I just thought I'd bring this one just as a demonstration purpose, because you can have an imaginary rod, but it does help to literally connect. So you can just use your hand, and I do this every time I go for a walk, and I pass by a tree or a rock, and it's just to help discharge stress. So as an exercise at home, you can imagine that you have your own, maybe Harry Potter's wand, and just touching that to the ground and using that like I know the PowerPoints in the UK are a bit different, but in Australia we have a third bottom one, which helps to earth the PowerPoint. And so essentially that's what you're doing yourself, and grounding, and to stabilize and center yourself, just to discharge any negative energy and the way that you're feeling. And going out in nature, putting bare feet on the ground on the grass is actually the best way to do it. And then visualizing that maybe you've got like roots growing out of your feet and going deep down into the earth to hold you and keep you safe and protected and grounded, rather than getting caught up in your head. And sometimes it feels like an overwhelm of all this electricity going through, and that's what happens. But especially when we spend too much time near electricity and indoors and with heaters going or fans going, all those types of things contribute to our overwhelm as well. So especially like if you're a sensitive type of person or an empath, such as myself, I actually feel other people's energy as well, and often need to discharge that, just all that energy. Termination of a relationship. So this is about holding on too long and having to leave. And this is not necessarily a relationship with an individual person. It could be the relationship with your old self and that identity that you've identified with. So you know how sometimes people do get stuck onto just being like sick, for example. I know someone is a practitioner near where I live, and all her Facebook posts are all negative. And it's all about her sickness and her health, her negative, poor health. And it's like, but you're a health practitioner and you're not helping yourself. But it's an identity that it gives her, there's like a secondary gain for her. And sometimes we need to let that go so that you can move forward. And that's what this is about. So terminating that relationship, either with a person or with your old identity, and moving forward and working out who it is that you want to be moving forward. Who's the new empowered you, the happy you. So explore hopes, dreams, and realities. Visually future pace this. So it's about looking into the future and seeing, through creative visualization and seeing yourself in the future, and to see if there are any limiting or repeating patterns emerging in your life. So as I spoke about earlier, sometimes we do have limiting beliefs, which then keep creating negative situations for us, or repeating patterns. And that's what the subconscious mind sometimes does as part of its programming. So imagine all the good, bright, exciting possibilities ahead if you chose to terminate that relationship, even terminating the limiting beliefs and the repeating patterns. And what resources do you need or support in order to help you to achieve that? And then future pace and look what that new you will be looking like with all your senses again. So, you know, what you'll see, what you'll hear, what you'll taste, who'll be there, what they'll be saying to you, all those things. And then the second part of this is when you're slow to move on. So this is again thinking about the circumstances and visualizing it, going through each room. So imagining that there's a pocket for every circumstance and every situation. For example, each relationship you may have had in your life, the work, the scenarios that led you to where you are today, and going through each room and just simply saying thank you and then closing the door. Balloon popping is one that I do regularly. Not a literal balloon, but an imagined balloon. And so especially when I'm feeling stressed and anxious, I start to, again, because this one helps you to focus on your breath, and breathing helps to calm you down. Very key exercise. Breathing also helps to manage our cerebral spinal fluid and the rate that that's going up to our brain. And deep, slow breaths are important to keep us calm. If we start breathing too fast, the body starts to think that you're going into a state of stress. And we don't want that, because being stuck, many people are stuck in a state of fight and flight, and that's not good for your overall health, and it just causes the adrenals to be on alert the whole time and can contribute to other health problems in the future. So balloon popping is, the way I use it, is to imagine that every time I breathe out, I'm blowing all those negative emotions into a balloon or a bubble, similar thing. And then you can choose however you want to destroy that balloon or let it go. So the way I do it is imagine that I'm letting this balloon go up into the air, out into the ether, for, you know, the universe to deal with on my behalf. So all the negative things and then I don't need to deal with it, and it'll be sorted for me. That's what I just visualize and imagine is happening for me. And I do find this helps to calm me down really quickly. Next is the worry basket, which is similar to the balloon popping. And but this is literally, you can write down all your worries and then put them into a basket, and then decide how you're going to get rid of this basket. Are you going to burn it? Are you going to toss it in the bin? Any of those types of things. Or you might tear up all the bits and pieces of paper. It's a way, again, of getting emotions out of the body. The worry box is a bit different. That's why we have a bit more detail here. And so every time you have a worry, write it on a piece of paper and put it in a box. Then choose a daily 30-minute period in which to open the box, look at the worries and decide, A, has the worry been handled? And if yes, destroy the paper. B, does it need action to be taken today? And then take the action and don't procrastinate. And C, do you need to hold on to this worry for another day? If so, pop it back in the box and put the lid on and leave the worry there for 24 hours. And don't think about it, just leave it in there. And keep to a maximum of 30 minutes, this exercise, and refuse to worry outside that period. Next is older, wiser to the child within. So when you can't think of solutions or have lost your way. This uses role play, but just with you. Sometimes it's good to have 2 chairs, because then you can get into character for each of the roles, and it's just energetically, it works much easier rather than trying to do the two within one chair. And so imaginative role play, as I said, use 2-chair technique and get into character. So one is the older, wiser you, and the other is your inner child, so the much younger you. And then what do they want to tell you, the you in the now? And what learnings do they have for you? You might think it sounds a bit silly, but this technique actually does work if you get into character. And maybe start by doing those deep breaths that we spoke about earlier. 6 to 10 breaths is a great way to start, just to connect in with the body and just clear the mind and just see what comes out. You'll be really surprised. Role play, similar. So when you're unable to see another person's point of view. So in this instance, it's just you, but you playing the role of somebody that you might have had interaction with, someone that's not resonating, or someone you that hasn't understood what it is that you're going through with your childlessness. So thinking about the issue while holding, frontal occipital holding, and thinking, how do you want to feel, and what do you want, and what are you willing to do for it? And speaking to the other chair and telling them what you want, what you're feeling, what you want, and what you're willing to do for it. Then change seats and pretend to be the other person, taking on their character and the belief systems you believe that they have. And restate what you just heard you say, and responding to the other person. Then returning to your own chair, tell the other person what you heard, and responding with more feel, want, and willing, and then continue the dialogue until you receive empathy, clarity, and understanding. This one's called dual imagery, also referred to as working with crystals too, if you want, or a piece of jewelry that you like. And it's great for during times of stress to use imagery or actual gems or crystals that help diffuse, so have a vibrational energy that may be able to, they may resonate with you, and it actually might help you to feel better. So for example, I've got this crystal Bible, and so I do work with crystals as well in my practice, because crystals themselves hold energy and all have different positive qualities, just like flowers also have positive qualities and vibrational frequencies, as do essences. And I've brought with me today I forgot what it's called now, my dragon glass from volcanic rock, and obsidian, that's what it's called. And I'm just going to read briefly to you that the benefits of obsidian being very black, and from the earth, it's being volcanic rock, it's almost like glass. Black colors are very grounding and earthing, and which is what we need to do, that was one of the techniques earlier. And this is said to have emotional healing after trauma of any kind. So even, facing childlessness is traumatic, and it is a form of grief that we're going through. So it's good, assist in expressing grief that is blocked, especially in children, but also in us. And it can also help with absorbing free-floating irritability and restlessness. But just as an example of what qualities some crystals are said to have. Okay. Symbolic encapsulation. This is to make a concept more tangible. So again, this is all techniques to help with the mind, but everything starts with the mind. What got you here today in this point in your life started with the mind. So this is about capturing the positive. And so think back to a time when you had that positive emotion that you want back. So to me, I wanted to be happy again, from being depressed, being the opposite. So I had to think back to a time when I felt most happiest in my past. And if you don't remember a time, because that was my other problem, I remember just being bullied from primary school years. So I didn't really remember a time when I felt most happy. So I just imagined a time, created one up. So use all your senses and think about what form, shape, symbol could adequately express that positive memory. So there's no rights or wrongs. So it could be a heart shape, it could be a round circle, it could be a square, it could be a triangle, it could be any form or shape or symbol, it could be anything. There's no rights or wrongs. And then decide where you'd like to place this to help you to heal now. And so sometimes if you're doing this with your eyes closed, just imagining that symbol or shape or form of it, and you might, you might want to place it into your heart to help with your healing. You might need to place it into your head to help with, releasing all the negative stuff, or you might need to place it on a bookshelf or under your pillow. There's whatever comes to you first, that's what's right for you. And then the same exercise can be done for releasing something negative. So thinking about a negative emotional situation, think about a container or symbol that you could pack it all into. So think about all the aspects of that. Really visualize its size, the shape and the texture, the color, anything about it, and decide how you're going to obliterate it, and then visualize that happening. Up to the second one, last one. You're doing well. If you're still here, it's number 19 of the 20. And this one's called victimization clearing. So this is when we feel like we're being challenged and victimized, and that, why has this happened to me? And when we feel like we've been done wrong by. This technique uses all the acupoints or pressure points in the ear that, for example, that an acupuncturist would use. Within a kinesiology context, we use acupressure instead of needles that an acupuncturist would use. And the ear has many of these points. And so what we do is, I'll just show you on the side, but do use both ears, because you're going to be pulling out the ears slightly. I'll come a bit closer, slightly, and you're going to essentially unfurl the top of the ear. So you sort of, as though you're trying to straighten it, and just going all the way around from the top to the bottom, and then back up again, and just keep going up and around like so. And at the same time, just while you're thinking of the negative situation, saying to yourself, I am full of love and compassion, and just repeating that over and over again. This is really effective. If I could muscle test you for your stress response versus a non-stress response, to start with, as you think of the negative situation, it would be a stress, and I wouldn't be able to hold my fingers together or muscle test with a weakness. And then after this, it'll no longer be a stress. So there is lots of powerful points in there. Okay, last one is a picture frame technique. And similar to the encapsulation technique, this one we're working with picture frames. And this works well when you're still fixated on a problem with no perspective. And so again, we start with frontal exhibitor holding, focusing on the issue, and then choosing a picture frame to put around the issue and describing it in detail. So, because it's a negative thing, I think of a drab type of frame, maybe grey, and an old steel battered up frame. And then if you were to choose a different frame, what would it be like then? And so describe this one in detail. So if we wanted to change it into something more positive, so I might think of a gold frame with lots of pretty detail and flowers around it. And then where would I hang this frame? And then while looking at this picture on your wall, thinking about how grateful you are for your life. So looking at it with new perspective, everything that's brought you here. And that's it, we've done our 20. So you've all done well to get through to the end. And thank you very much for listening and being here. For anyone that does listen to this program, I'm also happy to offer 30 minutes of my time for free. Just send me an email to info@empoweringhealth.clinic, because I realize that not all these techniques are going to suit everyone, and it might be a bit of overwhelm. I realize that I've tried to cram in a lot of information into this time, and the mind can only take in so much. So yeah, more than happy to give you 30 minutes of my time via Zoom. And also work with anyone that's in the UK or the US. We can arrange a time that suits us both. I'm not going to be putting a booking thing on my website because that won't allow for us to negotiate, to work out the times for international time zones. So just send me a note. And that offer will be valid till the end of the year, so 2019. And thank you for your time today, and thanks for listening. And my business name again is Empowering Health, and I do specialize in helping people that are childless not by choice. I am childless not by choice myself, and can speak authentically from lived experience. And 5 years ago I couldn't find a practitioner to help me to find my answers and to help guide me on my new path. And I want to make that transition for everyone a lot easier, so they don't have to struggle as long as I did to get through this time. So I remember even looking at the Gateway community and watching what people were writing about, and some people had been depressed for 6 years, and I thought, oh my God, that is not where I want to be. In 6 years time, I just couldn't stay that way. There's no way that I could continue not to function. I had to keep living. So yes, my job now is to help everybody out there to get through this as quickly as possible, as quickly as you're ready to be possible. Again, it's I work with your subconscious mind, and it knows what you can cope with at any one point in time. So it's a really gentle process, but very effective. And I look forward to hearing from you. So all the best, and wishing you every success on your journey to a happier future. Thank you.